Well, good afternoon to our audience here in Washington. Good morning, good day, good evening to those of you currently online. We're delighted to welcome you here to the Middle East Institute. I am Ken Pollack. I am the Vice President for Policy here at MEI, and we're absolutely thrilled to host His Excellency, Mr. Mustapha Noman, the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the legitimate government of Yemen. Mr. Vice Minister, thank you so much for joining us here. You're obviously coming at an extremely important time for the United States, for Yemen, and potentially for the partnership that may evolve between the two of us. Welcome to the Middle East Institute. Welcome to Washington. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for the Institute for hosting this event. And it's very interesting for me to be here with such a group of interested people about what's going on in Yemen. And I have to be very candid that I came here with not to the Institute, but to DC with too many questions. And it seemed that I'll go back with more questions, no answers. Everybody is seeking answers, but no one is giving the answer that we hope or we wanted to not hear, but to know at least. Unfortunately, that although this air campaign is achieving some of the goals, weakening the Houthis for sure, combined with the FDO, that will weaken them. But there will be also always that question, and then what? That's the first question. And if the United States, I'm talking now about the concerns. What if the United States declared victory and decided that it won the war and left the stage open for future unexpected events? This is what happened in, as we all know, in 2015, March 26. The Saudis started the war with an air campaign, very intensive. And in the last week of April, they announced that they have achieved 95% of the goals of the Desert Storm. So since 2015, we're still working on 5%. And that is a worry for us. It is very worrying, and it's
a very big 5%.
Exactly, more than anybody expected. So now we have to understand, this is why I came here, and this is to DC and to MEI to talk with those who are interested about Yemen, who have an expertise about Yemen, who are concerned about Yemen, and to exchange views. And as I said, maybe we get some answers from those who are asking us questions. So this is just to start this, and I'm ready to take any of your questions.
Well, I don't know that I have any particular answers for you, but I do know some questions that I hope will help our audience understand where we stand. And so everyone knows, the Vice Minister and I agreed that I would ask a few of kind of the biggest questions that everybody wanted to hear, and then we would open things up to the audience for more specific issues. But let's start, take us back to the first point that you made, Mr. Vice Minister, that the air campaign is having an impact on the Houthis. Maybe unpack that a little bit for us, because the truth is, we here in Washington, we get little bits and pieces from the media or from our own contacts, but it's very hard for us to have a sense of just what kind of an impact the air campaign is actually having. So perhaps we could start there.
I think the first impact is that it's keeping the Houthi forces away from at least the assaults in Yemen, inside Yemen. They are too busy now protecting their assets, and it's keeping them busy hiding whatever weapons they have. Of course, it will be very hard at this moment to understand what is the real impact, what are the losses that the Houthis were inflicted. And this is something that normally in all wars that we have witnessed, we will have like a statement or every day or every week or every month about what have this campaign achieved. And this is why for me, we are facing uncertainty. We don't know what really happened on the ground. All what we have seen or what we have heard is just the air campaign going on. We saw explosions, we saw bombing, but nobody really knows the impact on the ground. And this is one of the uncertainties that cause concerns to the government and even to the Yemeni people. We all know that the majority, I cannot say that all Yemeni people are anti-Houthi, but the majority, I'm talking about 90% or more, they are uncertain about, first, the end game, secondly, about the real goals of the air campaign, although it's announced that the air campaign is to protect or to prevent Houthis from threatening the maritime traffic in the Red Sea, but it's doing it without the Yemen government being involved in all this. And we all know that with an air campaign, you can never achieve a victory. So we have concerns about it. We have also worries that what if DC decided that we're done? Without us knowing that the Houthis have been weakened to the point that they cannot be a threat to the people first. I mean, for me, as a Yemeni, it's to stop the Houthi threats inside Yemen first. Of course. I mean, yes, the threats on the Red Sea are vital even for us because they are causing so much damage to the economy. But for me as a Yemeni or any citizen in Yemen, we want to see the Houthis weakened to the point that they cannot be a threat again, and they can be brought to the negotiations table teethless. I mean, we cannot accept them to come back, or no Yemeni will accept that the Houthis come back to the negotiations with their arms in their hands. That will not give us or will not reach or achieve the goal of the Yemenis. We as government, we care about Yemenis first, and then we care about the safety and security in the Red Sea. I'm not saying that the security and safety in the Red Sea is not of concern, but as a Yemeni, I want to see my people first safe, secure, and starting to think about what they can do next. And this is one of the ambiguities of this air campaign. And as I said earlier, it's of concern and even fear that what if the United States did not finish the job they said they want to achieve, or the goal they want to achieve in Yemen.
So this raises what I think is the obvious next question, at least it's obvious to me, which is what kind of contact have you had with the US government, with the Trump administration? How much have they been speaking to you? Did they let you know that they were going to do this? Have you had meetings about what the end state might look like?
The meetings I had so far were some of them with the Treasury, and of course at the Treasury you will not know what's happening on the military side. I had meetings at the Senate and at the House, and we have an understanding about the need, first of all, to implement strictly or with all its conditions on the FTO. Unfortunately, in that regard, but I'm talking about the FTO, there are some gaps that I think the administration either did not take into consideration, and I'll give you an example, and we have one of our greatest economists, Mr. Mazen, and he gave me this remark, which was not in my mind. I mean, now the FTO bans the Houthis from getting fuel, which was the source of, or the major source of income to the Houthis, but fuel. Now the fuel will go to Aden, and then it will be taxed there. Then it will move from Aden to the Houthi territories, and then it will be taxed again. And the Houthis might ask the owners of these shipments to pay the taxes either in Saudi riyals or in dollars. So they are funded again. I mean, they are not taking it to Hudaydah, they are taking it to Aden, but the money will go back to them. So this difficulty, we have to be creative, and we have to have more imagination about how to solve this problem. If you are talking about drying up the sources of income of Houthis, we're not doing it by FTO now. This is the first difficulty. The second difficulty that we will face that inside the government, as we all know, it's composed of many entities. And some of these entities do not have the same goal of the others. Like, let's talk about Houthis. Some entities within the government, the Houthis do not represent for them an imminent threat. It might be a threat in the future, but I'm talking about imminently, right. They don't think it is. So we have to accommodate that too. And because of these differences within the executive in Yemen, we have the difficulty to get one plan. Yes, everybody wants the Houthis out. This is for sure. But we have not got to not reached the point to have one plan for all these groups. This is a difficulty, and this is where the Saudis are the most involved in trying to solve. The United States, through its embassy in Riyadh, is trying to solve it. But this is a difficulty that will hinder the final goals of the campaign. If you want to weaken the Houthis, it's not enough to just go after them from the air. You have to go on the ground. And to go on the ground, you have to have the entities who are there, political entities, to be involved and to participate actively. And this is where we are not yet there.
Take us through that a little bit more, Mr. Vice Minister. What would you like to see the United States doing? Let's imagine that we had a good, strong partnership between the United States and the government of Yemen and perhaps some other allied countries as well, the Saudis, the Emiratis, perhaps some of the European countries. What would you like to see it do, both militarily and politically, to take advantage of this moment and deal with the wider problems of Yemen? Because I think everyone agrees with you that while it'd be nice to just get the Houthis to stop shooting at ships, there's a larger problem here, and not just for Yemenis, for the rest of the world as well.
I think it is unfair to say that there is a partnership between the United States and the government of Yemen. We're not there yet. We know about the activities, but we are not participating, neither in the planning nor in the executing. So partnership is a bit wide term that does not exist now at this moment. What the government wants to see is that the United States start to think that the war cannot be won only by air, but also by helping the government exert its authority in the liberated areas. But what the administration has done is that it stopped all their humanitarian assistance activities in the liberated areas. I understand that they're not taking the assistance to the Houthi areas, although the government is responsible for the population, not for the Houthis, for the population either there or in the south. Now the government is stuck with a gap of funding in all its sectors. And I'll just give you an example. We have a $70 million gap in the health sector alone. And I tried when I was in Paris in one of these conferences, and the Europeans said it bluntly, that they don't have money. Most of their money is going either for the defense budgets, they are increasing it, like UK has done, or they have social programs that they have to invest in, or for the war in Ukraine. So that leaves Yemen on the periphery of events that it did not participate in. And the United States want to weaken the Houthis, but at the same time, it's weakening the central government. So, and then me as a citizen, not an official, I will be wondering, what is the end game? What do you want to achieve? If you want to weaken the Houthis, you cannot leave the government weaker. You have to help the government. Of course, arming the Yemeni National Army. I don't think at this moment that the administration is in the mood of doing so. It's not there because of several issues. First of all, the end users, and then you have the UN Security Council resolution that prohibit that any country would ever help or arm both sides. So while Iran was arming the Houthis, and everybody was seeing it, either through land or from the Red Sea, Nobody was arming our army. No arms were given. No arms were provided to the army. And that's where this is like it's an added injuries, accumulation of injuries to the Yemeni government that keeps it weak, and every day it weakens. Now we have a problem in funding the budget. Why do we have this problem? Because the Houthis attacked the only oil terminal that we had, and they threatened that they will not allow any shipments out of this port unless they have a share equivalent to the number of people living there. So we are talking about 60%. And that doesn't, how can a government subsidize an enemy? But this is where it is. I mean, it is a very complicated, and it's always said that the more you know about Yemen, the more you find out that you don't know anything. So every time it's just repetition, and it's just like repetition of mistakes, unfortunately.
Yes, I've certainly found that out over the course of my career. But you mentioned the Saudis, Emirates. Tell us a little bit more about them. What kind of a role are they playing? Obviously, as you pointed out, they've had a Yemen experience recently, and they feel badly burnt. The United States did not really help them. In fact, we pulled them back. Did not end well for them in a whole variety of ways. But there does seem to be at least some tentative willingness on their part to re-engage. Have they been helpful, and in what ways?
Look, the Saudis have been trying, and at some point they just said it to the political elite that they will leave it to Yemenis to take a decision, to decide what their future should look like, what the end game, what the fate of the country should look like. The Saudis have pushed for what is known as the roadmap. And the roadmap was initially a Saudi plan, and it developed into being a roadmap taken by the UN envoy. So at this moment, the roadmap, and amazingly that the Houthis rejected it because it was in their favor at that time. The Saudis were ready to pay the salaries for 2 years, although the government was objecting. But the Houthis insisted that they wanted to put an end to the war, that we have to go into negotiations, and that they were ready to pay the salaries. Now, the Houthis refused to accept the roadmap, which now they are talking about. In their last meeting in Muscat, the Houthi spokesperson met with the UN envoy, and he's talking about going back to the roadmap. Now we are talking about a 4 years loss of Yemeni lives. Right. And I don't know if anybody is interested now in going and executing this plan.
All right, well, let's open it up to folks. I've asked enough questions. First row there.
So Egypt is most affected because people aren't using the Suez Canal.
This way, yeah.
That Egypt is most affected because people aren't using the Suez Canal. Why isn't Egypt doing more to combat the Houthis?
My feeling is I don't have any solid information about it, but knowing the Egyptian politics, the Egyptian army has never intervened outside their borders. That was their bottom line. They don't get, I mean, they were in Yemen, if we all remember, 62 to 1968.
Right.
But afterward, that was it. And if we recall that the Prime Minister of Egypt made an announcement or a statement a few days ago where he said that the Red Sea is safe. And that answer, that statement, he wanted to say we are not going to get involved. The Egyptian army does not have, or its ideology does not go beyond Egypt. They want just to remain there. They don't want, and especially in Yemen, they have bad memories there. It's a bad history for the Egyptians. They lost thousands of their army officers and soldiers. And so that might go into the psyche of the military establishment. And they have been saying since day one that the attacks in the Red Sea were because of what's happening in Gaza. They have to that was their policy. So I don't think, or don't have the feeling that they will ever go beyond their borders. It's an ideology of the army, and it's costly.
My name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon from Churches for Middle East Peace. This is a follow-up to that question, actually. We've heard that the Trump administration has expectations of Egypt because of the attacks on the Houthis in terms of the economic situation with the Suez Canal. I'm curious if the U.S. has had any expectations from the Yemeni government of any dues that need to be paid because of their bombing campaign.
You mean that the Yemeni government will be involved?
That there would be compensation expected because
Yeah.
they're doing the work of seeking to address.
Look, I mean, there are always so many doubts about what will be the aftermath, or what if we do something. Are they going to be compensated or not? It's not something that is, it's not a viable logic there. It doesn't work.
Still happening, even if it's, I mean.
Yeah,
but-
it might be, but I don't think it will be like the policy of neither the Egyptians, nor the Yemeni governments, nor the Trump administration. Because with the Trump administration, we receive sometimes mixed signals, and we don't know which one to catch. And that adds to the uncertainty of the overall situation.
This question?
Hi, thank you so much for your discussion.
Can we wait for the mic?
Okay, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for your discussion. My name is Leah Peterson. I'm a sophomore economics major at Howard University, and I also serve as Miss Embassy Row with the Miss DC and Miss America pageant this year. And my question is in regards to just like to a lot of the airstrikes happening in Yemen and that has been happening over the years. So I know specifically on like April 28th, around that time, there was a US airstrike that actually hit a migrant detention center and killing over like 68 people. And so I'm curious in just how the Yemeni government is working with other people to ensure that in addressing the Houthi issue, that civilians are also being protected and communities aren't necessarily being destabilized in the process.
The airstrike that we heard that it hit the camp, the refugees camp, it was not under the legitimate government's control. So we don't have real figures nor real facts about, or credible facts about what really happened there. My understanding from the information the government gathered is that, yes, there were refugees, and there were Yemeni prisoners too, who were killed in that camp. So having said that, we are not in a position to know really how many, and it's a sad incident, of course. I mean, nobody can even condone it or find their reasoning for it, but we don't know really what happened. There's Houthi areas, controlled areas, and it's very hard for the government to know. Even the UN itself, they send their officers on the ground from Sana'a, and all the statements they produce was that there were too many casualties, but the camp was not a UN camp, and they don't have a real figure or a real precise figure about the number killed there.
I'm going to try to ask a nice question. A question I get a lot here in DC is, why should we care about Yemen? Why does Yemen matter?
We did not ask Yemen to be a matter here. The United States decided that Yemen is not an important, but a risky place that has to be controlled. And it's all about the Red Sea. I mean, it was very clear from day one, and these were the statements of the United States, that it was not for Yemeni objectives. It was for the traffic in the Red Sea. So why the United States all of a sudden decided to take it, I mean, make it an important goal? It's because of the Red Sea. It's not because of the Yemeni domestic politics. I mean, and they said it, that they are not in a mission of regime change, and that they are not calling for any like eliminating the Houthi. That was said, and that and lately they started talking about peace process, that they want to bring everybody to the table. So it was not a Yemeni objective that they had in mind, that this is what I believe in.
There's a question back there. No? Okay. Sorry. Hold on a second, sorry. Oh, okay. We'll go there. Then we'll come.
Hi, thank you, and thank you, Your Excellency, for this conversation. My question is about putting pressure on Ansar Allah on the ground, because you mentioned that the U.S. government is not a partner right now. You're not partnering with them, and that there are limits, right? That there is not a willingness to, for example, put support with arms, the government side. So what is the minimum you would need on the government of Yemen side to put pressure on Ansar Allah on the ground from the U.S. government?
As I said earlier, because of the structure of the legitimate government, the structure comes, I mean, there are too many entities, and each entity has its own armed groups. So first you have to unite them, or at least have an operations room that will coordinate between these diverse entities. The second is that since 2015, the Yemeni army, I'm talking about the Yemeni National Army, has not been armed with more than Kalashnikovs and ammunition. No planes, no choppers, so they don't have enough arms that can counter the inventory of the Houthis. We know that the Houthis have developed skills in building missiles or drones, which the legitimate government does not have because of the too many restrictions. A non-governmental group can do whatever they want, but the government is also always bounded by restrictions and by UN Security Council resolutions, which the Houthis don't care about. And this is where the Iranians, I mean, they kept funding, kept arming, training, until the point where they started to have their own drones built in Yemen. And not only that, they're exporting drones now to Somalia. So we have now a place in Yemen where they have like arms industries that can be sold to the outside, which was not there before 2015. The army before 2015 and the arms were mostly, not totally, mostly under the National Army Authority, which doesn't exist now.
Hi, Sarah Hamasaid. Thank you for laying out the picture at the domestic and the regional level. If I may ask you about the global level, and if you can speak to the role of China, Russia, and the European Union, what role do you see they are playing now, or what role do you wish that they would play that they are not playing right now? Thank you.
First, related to China, we have talked to the Chinese officially about the information the government had, that they are sending arms to the Houthis. Of course, the Chinese government has denied this. So we could not like catch a shipment that's going to the Houthis, nor the US ships, Navy ships that are, going around the region. They have not shown anything or any evidence. We have only heard about arms going from China to the Houthis or going from Russia to the Houthis, but we do not have any solid proof about that. But we have talked to both, and both governments denied this. And our president is going to Moscow within a couple of months. So that showed that the Russians are not in the mood of arming Houthis or sending arms to the Houthis. I know it might look like the Chinese or the Russians wanted to help a group who's anti-US, like the Houthis, but they both denied it.
Mr. Vice Minister, how about Iran? You mentioned Iran before, and that's obviously another very big concern for the United States and our allies, the relationship between Iran and the Houthis. Where does that stand right now? What do you see going on? Are the Iranians continuing to be unhelpful? Have they pulled back? Give us a sense of that relationship.
Of course, the relationship between the Houthis and the Iranians did not start in 2014. It started much before that. I mean, I think it started late 80s, early 90s. And there were groups and folks of Houthis going to Lebanon or Syria and to Iran, either for ideological teaching or media teachings or army teachings. So they started building the structure of the Houthis, called Ansar Allah, in replicating the Hezbollah in Lebanon, of course, with the total difference of either the numbers or the structure of the country. So Iran took Houthis for as a thorn to the Saudis. That was the first thought of the Iranians. They wanted a group on the Saudi borders that can help them put a leverage on the Saudis. That was in their mind. And that's what caused the wars from 2004 onwards. Now, the Saudis have succeeded through the Chinese to reach an arrangement with the Iranians. And according to that arrangement, we have not seen any like attacks between both sides, the Houthis or the Saudi forces. Mm-hmm. There have been some skirmishes on the road, but that on the borders, but that was due to or related to traffickers. But the war between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia have stopped since 2019, 20 to 2020. But the Iranian will always feel that the Houthis are an asset to them. Now, if you dry up the funds that were coming to the Houthis from the Iranians, and it's not big money, we have to be very realistic there. It's not like the funds they used to send to Hezbollah or to Syria or to their allies in Iraq. I mean, in Yemen, it was, I would say, less expensive for them because of first, the numbers of those who were, attached to the Houthi group, to the hardcore, and secondly, because the cost of using Yemeni tribesmen is much cheaper than using the militias in Lebanon. I mean, you can get that for much less money. So it was a little investment, but it proved to be an important investment. And it proved that it caused a lot of concerns and fears and worries in Saudi Arabia with a small group that was able to control, like, I would say 40% of the land and 60% of the population. So the price was not, the price tag was not too high for the Iranians. But they helped them in having a leverage on the Saudis at the end of the day.
But, we'll take another question, a couple more questions, I'll say mine.
Sir, Shaman Magdashi, I would like to ask you a question. It's here. You mentioned the partnership with the United States that does not exist, and let's assume the United States decided today to partner up with the Yemeni government. Does the Yemeni government have the technical capacity to adapt the US support or channel it?
This is why we need the partnership, so that we get the technology and the training. It will take some time. It's not something that will happen overnight, but it's a start. I mean, we have to start it somewhere.
Ali, let's go to that gentleman there.
My name is Saif Al-Muthanna from Washington Center for Human Rights. You mentioned that Washington's goal is the Red Sea. So what is the government's solution in light of what is happening?
Well, I wish I have an answer. I said I'm going back with more questions from us. No, the first step that the government should do, and it is trying to do. It's very hard to do, but it's a must. It has to be united. It has to be one entity, one goal, one plan. This is basic. I mean, it's basic politics. It's basic statehood. It's basic nation-wise, which is not happening now. It is very hard because of the fractures within the Yemeni society that happened since 1994 in the war between the South and the North and its ongoing consequences. and back in 2015 with the Houthis going into the southern territories, that all created a feeling of, it reached at some point hatred between North and South. And this is one of the difficulties that has to be tackled, and it has to have a lot of work from the government, not from the United States. The government should do this. This is not the United States' job. This is our job. And that will take a bit of time. And this is one of the difficulties that hinder the United States to know where to put its arms, whom to arm, whom to train. So there are a lot of complexities there that the government itself and government alone has to tackle and has to work out.
This gentleman here. Oh, I apologize. I apologize. This gentleman here first, and then you.
I'm Ahmed Baidar. I work for PBS NewsHour. My question to you, Your Excellency, what about the humanitarian situation in Yemen? Humanitarian situation in Yemen, people are suffering. I know there are big projects that used to support more than 300 or 306 midwives in villages in Taz, and they're the only source, they are the only ones who preserve women's life, so or treat women's life. So what is your efforts to talk to the Americans? We know that USAID was terminated, and there are other countries and political efforts and diplomatic efforts from other states to find alternatives for fund. Is there anything that you are discussing with the Americans now?
Just to give you an example about the damage that happened to the humanitarian assistance programs in Yemen, the WFP, the World Food Program, used to give food to 9.5 million Yemenis, and it's now at 2.2 million. And next year it will be 0. That's only because of abolishing the US aid. So this is a big concern. This is why we are this is my talk with all those whom I met and those whom I'm going to meet during my visit here, is that the humanitarian assistance that has been harmed and damaged by the decision to abolish the US aid, which is a totally a decision of the administration, and it's their own assessment. But we have to tell them what the impact is. You want to win this air campaign, you want to get to like tangible results, you cannot do it while damaging the lives in the liberated areas. So this, I mean, it is our message, and we keep saying it to everyone we meet. I mean, the humanitarian assistance is equivalent to the air campaign. Without the humanitarian assistance, even if the air campaign achieves in weakening the Houthis can recover. And they have this flexibility of recovering. It's not the first time that they have been under fire. They have been under fire for years. The ambassador knows this. He has lived it. So they can come back. But if you do not empower the legitimate government, not only by arms, but even by feeding the people that are under its authority, because the government is losing its authority, and the people there, and it will be a logic the Houthis use against the legitimate government. You see what US friends are doing to you. They are not even offering you food that they used to do in the past. So this is major. This is very vital. You cannot win this campaign without resuming the humanitarian assistance, without empowering the government in all its branches. And from that point, maybe the Houthis will be out.
Inshallah. Yeah.
So just thinking optimistically for a moment, let's imagine that the Houthis are eliminated as a threat. What is your government's vision for rebuilding and developing the economy in that situation? And what are the strengths of Yemen that you'd want to incorporate into that strategy?
The first and major plan is that we have to resume oil exports because this is the only source of income. Secondly, we have to have a united, solid government. Thirdly, I don't think talking about eliminating Houthis is a rational outcome. It will not. Yeah, yes, okay. Now then you can bring them to the negotiation table, and if that happens, and they go back to reason and to national reason, then it could be something that the government can work south and north and can achieve the goals of the Yemenis. But without all these factors and parameters combined, Yemen will still and will go on in this turmoil for generations to come. It's not easy. I was in Paris to the what they call the N4G, the Nutrition for Growth. And we have a whole generation in Yemen that is suffering from malnutrition, and malnutrition will lead to so many lines of stunting, of the loss of weight, and you can see them already now in the streets in Yemen. You'll see them skinny, and you'll see, I mean, boys and girls at the age of, you think that they are at the age of 4 or 5, while they are like 15 or 16 years old because of the malnutrition. So this war has been creating generations that will be a burden on the economy, burden on the nation, and we fear that we will be left alone, even if the United States achieve its goals. Afterwards, we have this concern. We will be left alone to remedy our injuries and diseases, and this is something that I can guarantee Yemen cannot do alone. And if we cannot do it together, Yemen will be a land for terrorists. We have enough terrorists now in the north with the Houthis. We will have more in the south. We have Al-Qaeda, we have ISIS. I'm not saying this to threaten anyone or to try to extort anyone, but this is reality. Poverty, malnutrition, unemployment, arms in the hands of the young generation, it's dangerous. Those who have arms in their hands with no job, no hope, what can you expect them to be in the future? It's ISIS or Al-Qaeda, whether we like it or not.
I'd like to get back to that point first.
Thank you. Marwa Ghamrawi with the Washington Center for Yemeni Studies. There are a lot of important points that are being raised, but like you said, it's raising more questions than it's really giving answers. And it's a matter of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. So we're talking, there's a lot of talk about supporting the Yemeni government in arming it, but then there's also fractions within the government and within its representatives. And we've seen also what's unfolded in Hadramaut in the past few weeks, where they're, moving towards self-governance. How is the Yemeni government handling this situation in terms of remaining unified and having a unified front, as well as, in regards to why Yemen matters, that has to be answered in terms of why it should matter for U.S. policy for it to actually invest in strengthening the Yemeni government's front and arming that military.
Let's talk about what's happening in Hadramaut. I mean, Hadramaut has always been a very special region in Yemen, and its links with the Saudi Arabia has been historical, either through the businessman, a business community that was in Saudi Arabia. The most famous, of course, is Bin Laden family. You have Bin Mahfoud, you have so the big Bugshan, they were the hardcore of the economy in Saudi Arabia since the 40s and until now. So Saudi Arabia and Hadramaut has been always having special ties, special links, either I would say not emotional, but there is strong link. There are strong links between both. And Saudi Arabia has always considered the Hadramis as a special entity within Yemen. And even Yemenis considered Hadramaut as a special entity, either by their culture, their music, their heritage, their architectural heritage. So it was special. Now, what happened in the last few months, and it has been going for not just like exploded lately, because of the attempt of the STC to control. In Hadramaut, we have Hadramaut, the coast, and Hadramaut, the inland or the desert. And there is a distinct culture between both because it's a vast area. There has been a fight or a struggle of leadership within Hadramaut. And unfortunately, the government did not try to like solve these problems in Hadramaut at the right time. So it kept dragging until it became like an explosion. Now, what is happening in Hadramaut is that it's being divided more than it used to be. It was never that. Hadramaut was always one entity with one culture. There was never one leader in Hadramaut. There were always leaders, and leaders by families. So the government did not really pay attention to the ongoing conflicts there until we see them now. I mean, the STC wants to control it. Islah Party wants to have its share. The GPC wants to have its share too. And now we have, I'm afraid that it could be a regional battle, not only within Yemen, it can be regional.
Question back there? Can you wait for the microphone so the online audience can hear? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I first apologize for being a bit late. Second, if I may throw you a hypothetical, imagine you're trying to make the case to the Trump administration that you are making to us. You make your case, your interlocutor is someone who knows Yemen about as well as you know Manhattan real estate. And so that person tells you, well, you know, for years, decades really, we've been providing all sorts of assistance to Yemen. We had Peace Corps, USAID, and look what's happening. We're getting shelled by the Houthis. What would your response be to that?
It's a very simple answer. I mean, the reason is that there is no solid government. We all know this. But the main problem are the Houthis. I mean, if we can, I'm not saying that nobody can eradicate them. We have to be very realistic there. But we can weaken them. And we cannot do that just by air campaign, as I said earlier. It has to be I'm not talking about now military actions. I'm just talking about empowering the government in the south that's sitting in Aden, working with it, not only in the matter of, in the direction of arming. No, we need to feed the people first. We cannot take them to a war while they are hungry. And unfortunately, and sadly, I'm saying Yemen is going into a famine. And I'm saying this again, not as a threat, but we know figures. We know what it means. We know that with all the lack of the foreign assistance, which even we did not need in the past, but we urgently need now. Without this assistance to feed the people first, we cannot talk about wars. You cannot take people who are hungry and thirsty and cannot go to schools, and then you tell them we're going to war. It's unrealistic. And to give you an example, the schools in Aden have been shut down for 6 months. The last 6 months, they were not functioning because of the teachers' strike, because they did not have salaries. And suddenly, the Ministry of Education announces the final exams. How can a student who has not been to the school for 6 months, then you ask him, and he's hungry, he cannot find food. And I work from Aden, and I go day and night in the streets. And it's unbelievable. The only street that is lit 24 hours or can be lit 24 hours in a street called Al-Mu'anna. And it's not the government who's lighting it. It's the Al Said family from their flour mills. They're putting it there, not the government. The government cannot provide power, electricity, cannot pay teachers, cannot operate hospitals, cannot pay the social welfare, and then all of a sudden you ask them to go to a war. How can that work? War for a hungry man is not a necessity, even against Houthis. You cannot ask him to go fight Houthis because he's hungry and then he will be fed. You have to feed him first. You have to give him the minimum, at least, so that they can walk or operate. So it's a very complex situation. It's always sad, it's always bleak, but this is how Yemen is.
We still have just a couple of minutes. Take one last question. Ellie, right behind you. Right back.
Stanley Cobra, I'm an MEI member. The Houthis are trying to go over the heads of the surrounding governments, make an appeal to the people. We are sacrificing so much. Where are you? They're trying to inspire revolutions, to be blunt. We had a wave of revolutions in 2011. Could that be repeated?
I would say it could be impossible because the circumstances are totally different. Before 2011, we had like basic democracy. We have basic freedoms. People could go to the streets. We have political parties that were functioning either in the streets or in their headquarters or in the parliament. We don't have this now. Who is going to lead these guys hungry? They are hungry. You cannot ask them to go to the streets because they don't believe, they don't have hope. They don't believe in the leaders who are now running the place or who claim that they can lead the place. When you lose hope, when you are hungry, when you don't have a leadership that is working for the country and for the people, I cannot expect it. In 2011, it was like the whole country was in revolt, the whole country. And that is different. We cannot have it now. If you go to Aden, and that's because this is where I live, and you will see young people from the age of 15 to 20 just sitting on the sidewalks. Why? Because it's the only street that's lit, and because they cannot stay in their houses because there is no power, so it's too hot for them. And the streets at 45 degrees centigrade, Celsius, for them it's cooler than their homes. So how can I go and tell this guy, let's go and revolt? It doesn't, I wish they can. Maybe they can make the change, but unfortunately it's not possible.
Mr. Vice Minister, I don't know what kind of answers you're going to get from the Trump administration or for us, but we appreciate your willingness to give us your sense of what is going on there and how the legitimate government would like to see things unfold. I hope you also have a sense, at least, what Americans are asking about Yemen and the war there. And I thank you so much for taking the time to help us to understand this critically important issue at this extremely important moment in time.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you.
Please join me in thanking you.